Chapter 65. We are never alone. Never. I was always conscious throughout my entire life of a second beckoning in my consciousness. It beats me to the punch when I'm talking to others, and it clearly has a mind of its own, blurting out the most strange things. After my traumatic session with the Master Force at Jane's, it quickly became the only beckoning in my mind. I was informed by it to never speak to it again through another person. I was instructed never to rely on it for information in that manner ever again. I was instructed to practice speaking to myself in a mirror and to learn to depend slowly upon my own instinct. And the plain fact is, the more I depended upon my own instincts, the more accurate they became. And it is my only real source of decision-making in my entire life at this time and as I speak today. I think a question and it beckons an answer. It's fun, it's frightening, it's amusing, it's scary, and it's all those things put together. But it is never wrong. Everyone has this particular gift of individual mental competence. But because they continually rely on others' opinions for answers, the inner voice cannot penetrate their conscious ego, which has already accepted a group consciousness. The real culprit here is fear of rejection from the group and a fear of violation of political correctness. Therefore, fear of criticism from the group. For that reason, and that reason alone, I assure you, answers concluded by consensus in any group will always be wrong for you. I sense this wrongness immediately in all meetings that I attend, and I smile inside myself at the fruitlessness of group meetings and consensus-seeking institutions and situations. In the end, they're always about money, and money doesn't talk. It whispers, "I'm yours." Money only controls minds, not the other way around. Daniel called after about a week into my Mr. Mom routine with Jane. I thought this would be a perfect time to escape for her from the May-December marriage to an old man. I was totally wrong. She wanted to come to America. Jane had been sending me my Social Security checks as a batch of 10 checks predated to cash one each month in Namibia from our mutual Wilmington Trust account that received my own Social Security benefit the 3rd of every month. I gave 4 of them to Danielle when I abruptly left Namibia to help her survive without me. She had 3 left of $1,000 each. I told her to use them for airfare and come over as soon as a visa could be arranged. She seemed excited to do just that and started calling every week. I called her in between her calls in order to assure her she was welcome in America. Otherwise, life at Jane's was pure drudgery, and Jane could be a royal pain in the ass, just like any other old and firm person, and she was as demanding as all get-out. I slept on the ratty 3rd floor to avoid her constant, "Tommy!" Never let a great middle class suggest to you loving your neighbor is fun and frolic. It really sucks. My lawyer buddy, Will Redfern, was an absolute champ. He came by often and took me out for rides into the country in his beautiful luxury convertible. Jimmy the Sea, as I always called him, stopped by often, as well as many other friends. I handled it. The time slipped by, and one fine day in May, Annie, my #1 daughter, and I drove to Philadelphia Airport to meet a newly arrived Namibian, her new stepmother, my wife of 18 years. Smile, dudes. That's what I told everybody. She was my wife of 18 years because she was now 18. That's how I always introduced her to everyone. I waited at the terminal. She was white as a ghost, scared out of her wits. Her eyes were glazed over. When she saw me, as she disembarked, she ran to me, and she clutched me, and she would not let go. It was her first plane trip and the first time ever leaving home. Annie saw her and was amazed how beautiful and young she was in person. I had brought several mattresses to the 3rd floor, forgetting it was a rat hole, and that it was her first impression of Jane's after the introductions were made downstairs. I tried to make her see the positive side, that it was not going to last forever, but she was feeling yucky about our days. I told Jane We had to make a new campsite up there in order to live, and Jane had not been upstairs in many years. It was decrepit, it was dirty and smelly. I called an old friend in the painting business, Eddie Long, and he began in the attic and created a large room with a bed, chairs, and a TV for Danielle and I to hang out in. Eventually, he painted the entire 2 floors upstairs, so we had a plan. On Friday evening, during the 3rd week in June, right on schedule according to the Voice, Danielle and I lifted Jane out of the hospital bed for some sitting up time in her wheelchair, and she collapsed and slumped right into my arms. She awoke a few minutes later as I was dialing 911. What happened? The EMS took her to the Wilmington Hospital. I went in the afternoon to visit. She was in a hallway on a gurney and seemed quiet and content. I said, "Are you ready to die?" She smiled and said, "As ready as I'll ever be." "Okay, get ready, I'll see you tomorrow." I kissed her and gently and left. Next day, late afternoon, in intensive care, I arrived. The nurse on duty said, "She's totally out of it. She will not know who you are." I said, "Oh yes, she will." And after an argument and flashing my smart-ass lawyer smile, I was permitted to go in. Jane's eyes opened. "Hi, Tommy. I was just dreaming about you." I said, "Let me fix your sweater," as I moved a sheet around her shoulders, kissing her smiling face on the forehead and cheeks, and said, "You can go to sleep now, Jane. Don't come back, okay? I'll see you later." Less than an hour later at home, the doctor called. Jane passed a few minutes ago. And that was the end of that. She was never alone 1 minute. From the time I arrived home from Namibia, I got my word to her father, and she died with a big smile on her face. Hoorah. The following Monday, I read her will. Who would have thunk it? She put a big smile on my face. I didn't even know she had it. And the next chapter is chapter 66.